Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili, Gianarakos, my friend. How you doing?
Doing well, Yariv. If you're listening to this, you made it to Hump Day this week, so congratulations. We're almost at the weekend. Um, but I'm doing well, and for the Flyers and the team we cover here, very interesting start to kind of the end of the season, hopping out of the All-Star break. 5-game losing streak heading into that break. Team really looked like they needed a reset. And out of the break, they're now 4-0. And obviously, the reset and being able to charge their batteries a bit has kind of done them wonders. How you doing, Yariv?
Yeah, man, I think you nailed it on that one. I'm doing well, dude. It's good. It's good. We're back in the win column. We got some of the shitty news behind us now, and things are moving forward in the right direction, right? With the
Home
Flyers.
stretch to the playoffs.
Yeah. And we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. So before we do get started, just want to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notifications on YouTube, follow us on iTunes, follow us on Spotify, give us a rating on both. All of that is tremendously, tremendously helpful. And we want to thank you all for the support that you guys have given so far. Saw some comments of people asking for others to like and to subscribe and whatnot. So thank you all so much. Let's keep it up. Again, we're racing to 1,000 subscribers. That's been our goal for a while. We're inching closer. We're hoping to be there by the off season. So we'll see if we can get there in time. But it would be a humongous milestone for this channel. We've been kind of searching for that for a while. But thank you all so much for that. Also sponsorship shout outs, Jim Steaks. Don't forget to get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Again, you can order those cheesesteaks on DoorDash. And also Public Summit Adjusters at 215-752-0560. Okay, let's get into it, dude. So Flyers come in with another big win, their 4th win in a row since the All-Star break. They went in a 5-game win streak, then a 5-game losing streak, now a 4-game winning streak. They beat the Coyotes in a very up and down game, a game where first 2 periods, maybe they weren't playing their best hockey. They didn't look horrible or anything, but it was like a 50-50 game for a team they probably should have been beating. They were down pretty much that entire first and second period. They went down into the third period, down 3-2, a game where every time it felt like they were taking a step forward, they seemed to be taking a step back immediately. Just couldn't get enough sustained offensive pressure. They didn't play horribly, but not good enough. But they did find a way to kind of break out in that third period. Scott Lawton scores a big goal. Jamie Drysdale scores a big goal. Owen Tippett ices it at the end. Travis Konecny walks away with 3 points and a +2, played almost just under 22 minutes that night. So once again, leads all Flyers in ice time, I believe. Let me double check that. No, only Sanheim had more in 24 minutes. So a game where the defense played a big role, the offense played a big role, and they just found a way to grind it out, right? Again, one of those things where they didn't play their best hockey and they still found a way to win. And I talk about that all the time. That is a sign of a good team.
Yeah.
Usually a very good team is a team even when they're not playing their best, they still find a way. And Tortorella has been saying it all the time, right? They go about it and they just find a way to win. You're not always going to play your best hockey, but you got to find a way to win. And they could have used that a little bit on that 5-game losing streak where they lost, where they ran out of gas. But in this game, even Ersson, while his numbers are a little bit pedestrian, just because of the amount of shots, the Flyers only gave 20 shots. He did play really well. Couldn't really say the goals were his fault. Now, the only thing that drove me freaking nuts, and I think drove everybody else nuts, was the power play and lack of productivity there. But a penalty shot goal. And I even made the joke that I was happier for a penalty shot than a power play, which typically I'm not, because it's one opportunity versus, several. But with
Especially with who was taking it, right? Like you got Frost taking the penalty shot. That would be the guy you'd want there. So
yeah. So your thoughts? Yeah, go for it, Vasili.
Obviously for the Flyers, I mean, it's a total turnaround from what was happening, before the All-Star break here. Now in their last 14 games, they're 9-5-0. So really that losing streak kind of looks like a blip on the radar. I mean, you're in the NHL, you're going to lose some games. out of the last 14 to only lose five, and essentially in those periods put together a 5 game winning streak, 4 game winning streak right at the break. Really impressive. I think the main thing to note is most of these games, like you were mentioning, Yariv, they're not really playing at their best in terms of the fact that it isn't 3 solid periods where you can point to and say, wow, the Flyers really dominated. And that's the reason why they won. Like they deserve to win, right? Like if you look at the Florida game coming out of the break, real bad first period, then they really pick it up in the last two and get the win there. Obviously, Sam Erson's spectacular in that Florida win coming out of the break. Um, and playing Winnipeg is essentially the opposite of that, right? They have a really good first period, and their final 40 is abysmal. They get held to maybe 7 shots over the final 40 minutes,
Yeah.
taking on Winnipeg. And you see John Tortorella's reaction to that. Like he's not happy after the press conferences, giving maybe like a 40-second press conference, essentially saying, yeah, we just didn't play well. And that Seattle game, I think it's kind of a mix where they control the game for a little bit of it, but they're not really able to capitalize as much on some of their chances. So Seattle hangs around kind of until the third period. And the Arizona game, I thought they did have the better of the chances, but they're really unable to get the lead until the third period, right? Like the Flyers, they obviously controlled the offensive matchup. I believe they only allowed Arizona to have 23 shots on goal
Yep.
in the game last night, and the Flyers have 34
34.
shots. Yeah,
Yep.
so they're obviously controlling, just creating scoring chances when you look at that from that perspective. For me last night, the big standouts are obviously Morgan Frost, just a heck of a game from him. Honestly, probably one of the best games I've seen him play as a Flyer, just in terms of his ability to dictate, right? Like you could tell that he wanted the puck at all times last night. Like he was calling for pucks, calling for passes. And when he did have the puck, he wasn't afraid to take it into the middle of the ice. And that's when he's the most effective, right? Like when he's not afraid to get to those scoring areas. And that's exactly what he was doing. Drew a ton of penalties, even aside from that penalty shot, right? Like there's a bunch of power plays that were specifically due to the puck handling and puck carrying that Frost was kind of doing. Konecny also a huge game, gets 3 points. Lawton, another really big game, back-to-back goals for him in games. And Sanheim, I thought, had a really good game too, quietly. Obviously not as much on the offensive side of things. He did get an assist, but I thought he did a really good job, Sanheim, of him and York there kind of shutting down Arizona, keeping them more to the perimeter. I did notice the Flyers defense, like though they did have some turnovers and some over aggression at points, which led to the Coyotes goal. Once the third period came around, they really shut things down in the middle of the ice. And that was essentially a real factor in them securing the win. But overall, I mean, I think the most encouraging factor just of this 4 game win streak in general is the fact that they're not playing their best right now, but they're still getting wins. And like you said, that's a sign of a really good team. And that's a sign to me that they can kind of keep this going because they've yet to play their best out of the break. You'd have to assume at some point they do get things rolling and put a couple of full 60-minute efforts in. So that only bodes well for them, continuing to rack up the wins, get points here, and kind of separate themselves from the rest of their division, which I mean, with this 4 game losing streak right now, like it's looking,
Winning streak.
or was it winning streak? Sorry, with this 4 game winning streak right now, like it's looking really good in the sense that Flyers are sitting third in the Metro, 64 points, and they're 4 ahead of the Leafs and the Red Wings, who are also fighting with them for a playoff spot in the wild card position at 60 points. And in terms of their own division, you have the Devils at 56 points, the Islanders at 56 points. The Caps at 54 and the Penguins at 53. So the Flyers are, they're creating a bit of space between them and the teams behind them. So that's a really good sign, right? Even if there is any, let's say, prolonged stretch in the last kind of 30 odd games here of any losing streak. So
Yeah, no. I think it's really now. It is important to remember the Flyers do have games in hand on all these teams, especially the Penguins, who are 5 games behind. Their schedule, they're gonna have a really tough end of the year
yeah, that's what I
schedule.
mean. That doesn't necessarily mean anything because if you're a team, you got to win those games and they're all bunched in there. It can be tough to turn it
and
around.
and they've lost 2 in a row actually already. And for some reason they don't play tonight again. I was looking at their schedule a little bit, and it's like the Penguins are just I don't know why they clumped all their games. Seems like towards the back half of the year, and it could be good for them. Again, they're led by Sidney Crosby. I never underestimate him, but um it's going to be tough. Like the Flyers had their tougher schedule in the beginning of the year. And now they kind of have actual breaks in between games, ironically, when they have some injuries. But
Yeah.
I agree. I I don't think the Flyers have played badly, right? But the lack of the 60 minutes, but they have had some flashes where they've played exceptional
Yeah,
within
dominated, exactly.
right within that. So it's like it's not like they played mediocre and won. It's like they've had some down times. And I think this happens, right? It's an 82 game season. It's not football where it's 17 games and
Yeah.
every game you got to bring 100% or you're getting your butt kicked. There's a little bit of kind of floating through a little bit. Um,
There's always
and
lapses, right, in those
right,
stretches. So
exactly. An 82 game season, it's bound to happen. It's just can they get back into that momentum and that flow? And I think Torts does a great job of never really letting them be comfortable. Like you said, they won 4-1 and the team wasn't happy. The coach wasn't happy. And that's the standard we want to keep. It's not just the wins, right? It's your level of effort, your
yeah,
level of precision, your play, your process. That's what makes you a
I
highly competitive team from year to year.
I think that's a really strong sign too of showing how much the culture's improved here just over the last
Totally.
couple of seasons that John Tortorella's been the coach as well. Because I think if you look at teams prior to Torts, if the Flyers win that 4-1 game against Winnipeg, who's one of the best teams in the league, and let's say they aren't playing, the best, I don't know if they react in the same way that they did after a win, right? Like I don't think that, Alain Vigneault or the players would have reacted in that way potentially.
No, I don't think they would have. This is the only
Exactly.
coach we've had. I mean, it shows how important a coach really is, and I've heard that downplayed. I love the way I love that you just said that, Vasili, because people here have been talking about the Eagles a lot, and look, I don't know that much about football, but I'm not happy that the Eagles brought back Sirianni because I'm like, is his standard high enough? Like I think about that now. I measure other coaches like to the attitude that Tortorella has, where it's like process, process,
It's a
process.
winning attitude though, what
Right,
he's trying to put into
right,
place, right? Like you shouldn't be just because you win. If you perform poorly doing it, you shouldn't be satisfied because you have to look at it and think, hey, just because we got lucky and etched this win out, by the kind of grasp of our fingers, it doesn't mean that if we continue to play this way, it's going to happen again, right?
right,
Chances are, if we do this continually, we're going to lose more often than not.
right.
So you got to nip it in the bud.
100%, dude. Well said. And we mentioned some injuries, so the Flyers were without Rasmus Ristolainen and Tyson Forrester. Forrester, a little banged up, said to be a minor injury. Same with Ristolainen. There were speculations that Ristolainen's being traded. I don't think that they're gonna sit him a game with an injury and then trade him. I just can't see that happening. Maybe, but the likelihood is not probably
Slim.
not that.
And it's
Yeah,
really funny. Like we mentioned this off air that, 2 weeks in a row, we're bringing up rumors just because they're ideas in our head on the show.
yeah,
And then the next day, actual like insiders are tweeting about, potentially these guys moving. So first it happens with Lawton, then it happens with Ristolainen. Just to
yeah.
preface for everybody, we don't have any inside really
No,
knowledge here on the rumors. So it's mainly just what we think by looking at the team and kind of what
yeah,
makes sense for them. So it's just, we find it really funny that it ends up coming up because it almost like, in a sense, kind of proves us right that, hey, maybe this is a smart way for the team to go down this road with trading him and maybe keeping Walker or trying something else like that. So
right.
it's interesting
Like
stuff.
I try to preface every time we're playing GM. We're putting our we're putting our GM hats on. We're going, if we're GM of the team, what are we looking to do?
Yeah.
Right? It's not, and it just happens to align with, quite frankly, a really good general manager. So the stuff that we're suggesting, the reason there's rumors coming out about it is because he's exploring all options, as he should be. Right? It doesn't mean any of the rumors are going to actually happen. I've heard rumors come up to a point. I've seen trades finished. Like, I don't know if people remember this, but Dan Cleary was supposed to be a Philadelphia Flyer. And I was online, and I remember this. If people remember Sarah Baker, where she was here, she worked for the Flyers at the time. I got in like not an argument with her. She's a nice girl. I got in like a debate where I was like, and this was before I even had this site. I was like, I don't buy this trade. She's like, well, but it's done. It's being reported as done. I was like, I don't think so. I was like, it doesn't make any sense. And then the trade never actually happened, or the signing never actually happened. Dan Cleary never signed with the Flyers.
I remember that
He
actually. That was
re-signed
really
with the
funny.
Wings. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, he's old. Why would we give him a 3-year deal? It was bullshit. But people can say that, oh, they had a handshake deal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it didn't make any sense. So it didn't come to fruition. It's just like sometimes you have to look at that stuff and it doesn't make, and if it does happen, it doesn't make sense. It's probably bad, as we've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, the Claude Giroux trade, if for those who have been here for the ride, did you hear us complaining about the return for Giroux in Tippett and the first? No, we said it was a really good return. The only thought we had is, hey, this guy is a legendary flyer, probably deserved the respect to finish his career here. That's the only place that I was coming from. And that's a very rare category of players. And we'll talk about one that I don't think belongs in that category. But obviously is very important to this team. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's talk about Frost, though. You mentioned him already. Since that benching and that conversation with Tortorella, I mean, Morgan Frost, and he played well last year, right? This is like not saying he's never played well. He looks like a guy that you can invest in. And with Cutter Gauthier not being here anymore, and I said this after he got traded, um, the whole conversation around Frost should be completely different than it was. Not that, hey, we should never move him or any of that, but it went from being a guy where like he might not fit in. We have other top six forwards coming in. We might need to make room. Where to the point where you're like, this guy probably is a top six forward. At least he's playing like it. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but I do believe he's like not that far off from a point per game since that benching. Probably slightly off. He's played just exceptional. He's been flying. And it's not just the playmaking and the stuff that he's already brought. It's just the aggression, the confidence, the Flyers weren't playing that well last night offensively, but he kind of put the team on his back. The same burst that we saw from like Owen Tippett at times. You saw a little bit of that in Frost where, he's just entering the zone. He's making a move. He's doing that extra. He's got the confidence behind him. He just looks like he feels like he belongs where he is, and doesn't feel like he's walking on eggshells. And I saw him play some pretty good defense last night, even though Flyers didn't play amazing defensively last night, but I did see Frost kind of be physical and really try to get in the way a lot. And he just, it's really nice to see. And I was in the, Flyers will probably move Morgan Frost, camp to the point where I'm like, I don't see that anymore. Unless it's like in a package where it's like Frost plus for Zegras or
Yeah,
Frost in a package for like another
a
top,
superstar or something. Yeah.
something like that. I see the Flyers being like, well, we have him signed at pretty low cost, and we think we might have something in here. And again, you never want to trade a player when he's got lower value, and the best would be just let it play out and
See
see
what he
where his
ultimately
value,
becomes. Yeah.
yeah, and see where his value becomes in the end. Because even if it doesn't work out here, like you've already revitalized his value in this short period of time. So it shows how patience is the way to go and let Tortorella do his thing.
Yeah, no, I will be the first to admit it. Like, I'll eat total shit on my opinion on Frost. Like, not to say that I didn't think he had the talent and the ability to do what he's doing now, because I always thought that that was the case.
Of course.
I just didn't think he was going to be able to do it here. And I think for a lot of people, that was the sentiment, right? Like, you saw a lot of the skill, you saw the flashes, but the coaching staff just refused to use him in the areas where he needs to be put to have success. And I just thought, hey, like, this is getting so prolonged at this point, and the team's having success without him. Like, I just can't see them keeping him. Then obviously that little chat with Tortorella happens, and then it's a complete turnaround. And I think really at this point, the light bulb's just kind of boom gone off for Frost. And you can really see that he's comfortable out there on the ice, figuring things out. Like, he doesn't seem to be like he's a panicked player. Whereas, not to say that he was that last season, but I felt there at certain points, like you'd see him rushing to make plays or, doing things that, that maybe he could have more of an effect at. And now it just, like I said, it's a complete turnaround. Just to kind of put it in perspective, Frost is at a 50-point pace this season. So not bad. And that's him probably having how many healthy scratches? So, right, if you take that into account, probably could be higher. Couturier is only at a 52-point pace. So that just kind of shows that Frost is, I mean, offensively almost on the same level of Couturier at this exact moment. But yeah, Frost in general, I'm not exactly sure when that chat with Tortorella took place, but in his last 20 games played, he's got 16 points. So, I mean, that's pretty good, right? Like that's about a point seven or so points per game. So he's doing pretty well here, just in terms of his production. That's what he needs to do to continue to stay in the lineup is produce offensively. If you're going to be in that, 2C type of role, and yeah, he's definitely hit another level that I believe he had the skill to do it. I just wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do it here. And the main thing for kind of Frost is just his speed kind of coming out, right? Like I wasn't aware that he could be this fast at the NHL level. I just don't think that he had the confidence prior to kind of do what he's doing when he has the puck on his stick. Whereas now, like I said before, he's kind of dictating when he has the puck, looking to create offense. Tortorella stated it perfectly in the press conference after the Arizona game last evening. He said it looked like Frost wanted to put the team on his back.
Right.
And that's
And I felt
what,
that.
yeah, that's what it looked like to me because I tweeted numerous times after the first period, after the second period, after the game. I said Frost the whole way through. I said looks like the Flyers' best player, and that's was true, right?
And
Like,
he played 20 plus minutes last night. So
yeah, and that shows the coaching staff's thinking the same kind of thing. But yeah, really great move from him on that penalty shot goal. Like the patience, first of all, is amazing. Silky hands coming in and kind of slowing it down with the stick handling. And then like I'm a goalie guy, so like whenever I see how shooters place the shots, I'm always thinking of like, oh shit, how's that going to affect the goalie and their ability to save it? So like when I see Frost put that penalty shot right in between the pad and the blocker, I'm thinking this guy has it turned on. Like he is feeling it because as a goaltender, you know how hard it is to save a puck when it goes in between your blocker and your pad. It's basically like a 99% chance that's going in because that split second for you to close down on that in that hole, it's so slim, you're never gonna save it. So like for him to put that shot like in that perfect place just shows he's feeling it. Yeah, just a great game from him in general. This is a really great stat from John Bailey on Twitter. So shout out to him. But Morgan Frost has a 5-on-5 on ice expected goals percentage of 62.5%. So that means typically on the ice, the Flyers are creating more chances and usually have a higher chance of scoring and creating higher danger quality scoring chances when Frost is on the ice with the 62.5% of expected goals there. That's better than the following centers in the league this season. And that is Rupe Hintz, Sebastian Aho, Nico Hischier, Elias Pettersson, Anze Kopitar, JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, Braden Point, Jack Eichel, Robert Thomas, Bo Horvat. So it just shows the impact that he's having at 5-on-5 in terms of, high danger scoring chance opportunity creation. It's greater than all those players I just listed. So it shows that, Frost is obviously doing really well this season in terms of that in general. And that's all stats combined, not even before the little meeting he had with Tortorella. So yeah, he's just been great. And I think at least on the power play too, you can see that despite the fact they didn't score, like you're seeing it kind of run through him more. And I think that'll be crucial for them to kind of get it going. I think he's probably one of their most creative power play weapons. So the fact that the team is kind of realizing that and giving him more opportunity on the power play, I think only bodes well. And then one last thing I wanted to mention, just because Frost scored the penalty shot, but the Flyers have the most penalty shot goals in a single season right now since 2013-14, where the Stars also scored 4. In NHL history, there's only been 4 other teams to score 4 penalty shot goals in a season. That was the Stars 2013-14, the Hurricanes in 2005, the Wild in 2003, and the Canucks in 1997. So it's just a really weird stat for the Flyers, but
well,
that was fun to
coincides
mention.
with their rushing success, right?
Yeah,
It's probably
exactly.
brought it on.
Tons of breakaways, tons of rush chances. They're leading the league in breakaways, like we said last show. So makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah.
Frost, he's been everything I think the Flyers could have asked for and more in the second half here versus what kind of he was providing to the team in the first half, which was not much really.
Yeah. And look, I think with the penalty shots, like people could say, oh, the Flyers finally have the skill for the penalty shot, but they had Claude Giroux here, they had Jake Voracek. Like I don't
It's a
buy
little
the
overblown, to be
yeah, I don't
honest.
think it's a skill thing. I think a little bit of it is like luck.
Yeah, luck, to
But
be
I
honest.
also think that they are being opportunistic this year, and they have the confidence this year with the wins behind them. Again, the team is rolling, and when the team is rolling, like I was worried that he wasn't going to score that penalty shot, but like I said earlier, like I was making the joke where I'm like, at least it's a penalty shot rather than the power play because the power play went what was it 0 for 8, which they weren't all
Yeah, 0
full
for
power.
8.
Yeah, it wasn't all full power plays, but let's just say an 0 for 6.
Yeah.
It's
You
pretty
know
bad.
what though? I'll say with the power play, at least they generated chances. Like the power play looked dangerous, but at a certain point, man, like you have
On
to
like
just
half of them
you
though.
you have to capitalize though, right?
Well,
Like
you know what? Let's just since we have it at different points here, but let's just talk about the penalty kill, the power play, all that stuff. Because you're right. It. I am not happy with the power play. I do think it has improved, not just statistically, but I think the movement has been better. I still believe it's not a talent issue; it's a process issue, and I'm still seeing points where there's a clear cut shot and they
and they
opt for
don't
a
take it.
pass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's just they're overly complicating their own power play. I think it's just really more about just getting shots on net. And like TK was downgraded on the power play and given that spot to Frost, and I can appreciate that. But why is Coots playing along the half boards to begin with? Like, why is he not in the slot? He's the biggest, strongest center we have. He's got a shot on the one time. I just feel like the decisions being made with the
Yeah.
power play are not good enough. They're not horrendous. They're not like, oh, this person is a moron, but they're not good enough. Like they're not maximizing what talent is here on that power play. There's enough talent for this to be a middle of the road power play, not
Yeah.
the bottom.
The Couturier point's really interesting to bring up because if you look at the majority of the goals he scored in the power play this season, not exact on the
They're
number, but it's
probably in
it's
the
like
middle.
3 or 4, but they're all either rebounds in the slot or cleaning up rebounds in front. And like it makes sense to put him there, as you said, and they're just not. Like I said, I think really what needs to happen, I think it is they're kind of starting it here with Drysdale getting put on that top unit, but I think it's really like utilizing that tippet shot. Drysdale as the QB can kind of hopefully open it up, and then you have Frost as the other option um, on the left side there, maybe who's kind of the facilitator as well as Drysdale. Like I noticed they kind of changed some of the penalty power play units. Like they had Couturier in the first unit for a bit, then they dropped him off. And they put Frost up there, which I mean makes sense. He was really feeling it, so why wouldn't you
Yeah.
do that? So at least we're kind of trying to change things around, but to have 8 chances against Arizona, like, and not to say that the Coyotes like are a shit team or anything this season. Like they're a middle of the road team. They're not bad or anything, but like their penalty kill is 19th in the league. Like it's not like they're a juggernaut or something. Like you should be
Right.
able to score 1 out of 8
Yes.
against them. So to get nothing, I mean that's a little concerning, but it's not anything that is really new in terms of this Flyers team. Like this is their weakness. I think at
Yeah.
this point it's safe to say, right? Like they're at least they're not last. Right now they're 31st. Chicago's 32nd. Their efficiency rate this season is just terrible. It's 12.6%.
After
Um,
last night, it dropped the whole percentage.
oh, it was 13 before
It
that?
was
Even
13 and a half.
oh, there you go. So even better. But yeah, it just you'd expect them to capitalize more than 0 times on 8 chances. And it's gonna continue to be a work in progress, but it's kind of scary to think like how good would this team be if their power play was like 15th in the league? They would
Right.
be a serious threat.
Yes, and the production of all of the players would be higher.
Yeah,
And
and
it's crazy they're having all this production without a power
yeah.
play that's even reasonable.
No, exactly. And I guess on the other coin or the to flip it over, I mean, the penalty kills the complete opposite. It's kind of hilarious that they're last in or second last on the power play, and then they are second best on the penalty kill. It's like literally flipping the
Yeah.
script. So they're an 86.3 efficiency rating on the PK. That's second in the league, only behind the LA Kings. So obviously the Flyers penalty kills being one of their strengths. We've known that, you know, throughout this whole season. I believe they lead the league in shorthanded goals, or they're tied for the league lead with 12. One person to really highlight on the PK who's having a huge effect the last handful of games since the break is Ryan Paling, right? Like his
Yeah,
speed, very noticeable.
that's why you get a contract.
Yeah, exactly. Two games where in the Winnipeg game, and the Seattle game where he gets two back-to-back shorthanded goals. Like when do you
That
even,
he makes himself,
yeah,
right?
when do you even see or hear of
Mike
guys?
Richards. Mike
Yeah,
Richards was
exactly.
the
That's what I
last guy I
mean.
could think of that
That,
was doing that.
that's what I'm saying. And like to have a weapon like that in Paling, and then on one unit, then you also have Konecny, who's a weapon of his own on the PK. Like it's really not a penalty kill. It's very much a power kill at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it. But yeah, those Paling goals, I was really impressed by those. Just the fact that both of them are essentially created with his speed. Like he's just going full bore, skating like the wind, and then just not afraid to take the shot because why not
Well,
in those situations, right?
don't you think the penalty kill, they keep it a lot simpler than the power play? Like, and I talk about this all the time, and people, it really bothers me that people keep saying this, but they're like, oh, the power play is too predictable. People aren't really saying that anymore, but I heard that nonstop over the past few years, and I kept saying that is irrelevant if it's predictable. All
Yeah.
special teams are predictable. They have tapes on you. Even Tortorella talks about that the tape he does show is special teams.
Yeah.
That's what it already is predictable. The problem is the execution. It needs to be quick. People need to know their role. If people want to remember when the Flyers had a great power play, everyone knew what they were doing. It was Claude Giroux to either Jake Voracek or Wayne Simmons, and they would do the same shit every game.
Just think about Ovechkin. That's all I'm going to say in terms of predictability and how hard it is to stop a guy that was the most predictable ever, but nobody could ever seem to stop him from scoring goals on the power play, right?
Right. But he would execute with precision, right? He
That's what I
would
mean.
and just boom, shot. Yes, he has a ridiculous shot. They had one of the best power plays in the league. We're not shooting for best power play in the league. We're shooting for middle of the road.
For like 20th, I think fans would
Right.
accept at this point.
Exactly. We're shooting for middle of the road. So we're just really shooting on execution, precision, have a plan, stick to it,
It
and
isn't there
fire pucks on net.
for the power play. It isn't there, right? Like I think we can
No,
both
it's not
agree, and
there. It's a mess.
most people watching the team all season can agree that if they just overloaded with shots on the power play, that would be probably a better
I think
approach to what they do now. Yeah.
they'd have more success than they're having now.
100%.
And
Yeah.
and when's the last time you saw defensemen from the Flyers on the power play specifically just blasting the puck when they
Taking a
get it?
shot, rare.
Almost like never.
Even Drysdale, who I think is
He passed up
better. Yeah,
several shots last night
that's what I
that he
mean. I
should have
think
taken.
I think he's better than most too at getting the pucks through, like with his shot. So
Yeah.
it's a little puzzling as to, hey, I'm not shooting at all from the middle. I'm essentially taking myself away as a shooting option by doing that because after 8 power plays, the team recognizes, hey, like this guy's never going to shoot from up there. And then what does that do for a team's penalty kill? It makes it clear, well, if we just cover the flanks, it's going to be real hard for them to get a shot off that we don't anticipate, right? So I think it's just, it's the variability of it. Like you got to switch it up sometimes to throw other teams off too. They're just not doing any of that. Shooting, switching it up in terms of having your point man take a shot once every like blue moon here. But yeah, I don't know if the power play is gonna get better at all going forward. But I mean, if they can at least hit on like a clip where they're even 25th in the league, like where they're scoring 1 out of every 8, for example. It'll make this team even more dangerous than they already are.
100%. I think it's key. And look, the playoffs a lot of times is a reset for special teams. So assuming they make the playoffs, like they should go in with a fresh mindset. And
Yeah.
look, I don't believe in firing an assistant coach just because of special teams because that's not their only job. But you got to look at Rocky Thompson and either they got to bring in a specialist, they got to do something because nobody right now has the answers
Bring
for the
Joe Mullen
Flyers.
back.
Yeah, and you can tell me it's talent, but it's it's not because when the team keeps it like Ryan Paling is scoring more on shorthanded than they're scoring on the power play.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, if it was talent related, they wouldn't be scoring as much as they are in 5-on-5, and they wouldn't be winning all these games in
right,
the first place.
exactly.
So,
It's execution based. And again, we're not shooting for the moon or for the stars here. We're shooting for middle of the road.
mediocre, basically.
Yes, we're shooting for mediocre. And you can look at the Flyers lineup and say they have an average offensive group. So they should be able to get an average power play rating.
Yeah, it's funny. Even whenever I watch like games, sometimes that are nationally broadcast, and like Canadian media is covering it, so it's on Sportsnet or TSN, the Flyers are playing or something, or on CBC.
Sure.
The best thing I notice is the Canadian, commentators will always mention, yeah, and the Flyers, they're last or second last on the power play. That's surprising considering how well they're doing this season. Like people are surprised by the fact that the Flyers are this shit on the power play, which usually with a good team you aren't as this terrible on a power play. So it's really weird,
Right.
but I mean, I think the PK being as good as it is kind of offsets it a bit. Like if the PK was middle of the road, I think then the power play being this bad would have more of an effect on them overall. But the fact the PK is so good, it's not as big of a deal, I guess.
I mean, it definitely masks the problem, but it is a problem, and it's been a
Yeah, for
problem for a
sure.
few years, and it's not getting any better, even though the talent's getting better. So it's a process issue. And they'll have to evaluate in the offseason. Like I would look, I don't think Rocky Thompson should be fired, but
You have
when
to
you
look at
look
all
at Brad
options.
Shaw and what he's able to get out of the Flyers crop versus what Rocky Thompson's able to get out of the crop on the special teams specifically, because offensively, 5-on-5, they've been good. So I'm not gonna not I'm not gonna take away from what he's done well, but that has to be evaluated. And if it requires bringing in another coach specifically for the power play, I would explore that.
Keep Thompson, bring in Voracek as the power play coach. We saw him in the stands yesterday.
Yeah. Well,
He wants to come back.
he's part of the
I know.
Coyotes org, right?
LTIR, yeah. But I thought that was great to see Jake
Bring
there.
back Joey Mullen. Bring him out of retirement.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah. So somebody who is nailing it, we mentioned it earlier, Travis Konecny, he had a goal, 2 assists, 3-point night, a +2, played 22 minutes of ice time. He's inching back towards point per game status. One of the leaders in goal scoring around the NHL. He just looks sick. We're going to talk about the trade deadline stuff, but I just want to talk about this specifically right now. For all these people who think that Travis Konecny is getting moved, I mean, I would take that out of your mind. I never agreed with it. Didn't agree with it last year. Didn't agree with it in the beginning of the year. Didn't agree with it the year before. And I've said this even before Vasili joined the podcast, which is a while ago, because
Like
he's been
three
here for,
years at this
yeah, I was
point.
going to say, he's been here for a lot more episodes than I did by myself. I don't see it. He's on a Brad Marchand type of track. He is in his mid-20s. Why the hell would you move this guy?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Once you move him, guess what you're going to be looking for? A guy
To
that's like him.
replace him.
Exactly.
Like, why? You move
Oh, we have a 40 goal
other
guy. Let's trade him.
minimum 30 goal guy. This is without a decent power play. You know what I mean? Like, if we had a decent power play, he's a 40 goal scorer in the NHL. So again, doesn't make any sense to me, but I do think Travis Konecny just looks sick. He had a humongous hit last night. He's physical. He's aggressive as all hell. He's confident. He drives offense by himself if he has to. He is exactly what you want in your top six as a Stanley Cup competitive team. And any team in the league would be hungry as hell to get him on their team, which is why people talk about trading him. Again, as soon as you trade him, you're going to be desperate to get him back. Find other things to trade, not arguably your best player. Like,
I don't even think arguably. I think he is the best player.
I say arguably because a lot of people, and we'll talk about Coots right after this, a lot of people are kind of down on Coots right now. I personally am not even close to that vicinity. I don't
Yeah,
think
me
he's played
neither.
his best hockey, but I kind of expected this coming back from 2 years of missing hockey. So to me, it's just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, let Tortorella ride him. I'm not going to be doing that. I kind of expected this at times. And I expect him to get out of it, to be honest with you. But TK looking sick. What are your thoughts on TK? I'll let you.
Yeah, TK's been a buzzsaw since or since we've come back from the All-Star break here. Last night's goal was his third goal in his last 4 games. So he's basically almost scored every single game coming out of the break. Kind of just shows, how much that helped him kind of rejuvenate things. Because before that, I think he was 11 games or so without a goal. going into the break. So obviously he needed it. You can see that, he's the Flyers' best offensive player. Um, at least through his performance this season. Last night's goal gives him 25 goals on the season in 54 games. I mean, I think he could definitely still hit 40. It's definitely a possibility. If he doesn't hit it, he's going to be real close, most likely. In total, 25 goals, 24 assists, 49 points. So really even in terms of production, in terms of the goal scoring and the playmaking. And that's something that we brought up on the show prior, that he's been one of the best chance creators in terms of like high danger scoring chances in terms of the passes he's been making. So it's not just the goal scoring. He's doing a great job setting his teammates up as well. And a lot of it too is like what I noticed with Konecny, he's just engaged, man, all over the ice. Like, a scrum happens, he's right in there, sticking up for his teammates. Like he just gets guys into the fight and kind of fires up the boys. You can really tell that he's like a huge spark for this
Totally.
team. And that's why when you hear people say, potential captain material down the line here, like I totally think it's a possibility. Who knows what's going to happen, but he definitely has that personality in terms of dragging a team into the fight. And I have some really, really great stats here. Let me just bring them up. They're really interesting for Konecny. And he really just in general is having a stellar season. Like his last 21 games played, he's got 22 points. On top of that, even some more stats here that I'll bring up. So he's tied 14th in goals this season, tied first in shorthanded goals, tied 12th in even strength points. Only McKinnon, McDavid, and Pasternak have more rush chances this season than
Power
Travis
play.
Konecny, and that's via Sports Logic. In his 5-on-5 minutes, the Flyers have 58.2% of the shots and 57.4% of the chances. That's also via Sports Logic. So, Konechny's just doing it all. And that one stat I mentioned where he has only McKinnon, McDavid, and Pasternak have more rush chances than him just shows how much of an impact that he has on this Flyers team, because it's really clear from the stats we brought up in prior episodes. This is a heavy rush team and a team that really relies on their transition. And obviously, Konechny has a huge part in that with all the chances he creates. And they're kind of just letting him go and saying, hey, like you know, one of the best players right now in terms of offensive chance creation off the rush, in par with a McDavid, with a McKinnon, like a Pasternak. Like just you're off the leash, Konechny. Just go do what you do best and create, these opportunities for us with your speed. And it's just crazy to me because I remember when I first started doing this podcast, Konechny was having a real down year, and the discourse all online was, the Flyers got to trade Konechny. They got to get rid of Konechny. He's never going to be more than a 20 goal guy. He's developed. He's already 24. Like we know what he is. Like, why are we going to keep him? Why are we, why would we should trade him, get a first round pick now before his value gets even worse as he gets older. And like, it's just crazy. Like, how much of a mistake would that have been if they would have traded him when everybody in the fan base was calling for it and the Flyers held on to him? So ultimately, it might be one of the best trades they never make, because I'm sure, like, who knows what their internal thoughts were, but I'm sure, maybe there were some thoughts. Hey, like maybe we can move him. Maybe we, should keep him. Who knows? But I think down the line, it's going to be one of the best trades they didn't make. And I think it just shows, right? Like Konechny, he was a prime candidate by tons of people to get traded. Everybody said he was already fully developed. And how many times we said on this show that most players in the league do not hit their ceiling at age 24. Development's not linear. Some guys take longer to develop. Look at Travis Konechny.
Majority of
Look at
players
look at
do
Konechny,
not.
right? If the Flyers were to trade him at 24 and you would have seen him becoming a 40 goal guy on another team, what would everybody have been screaming? Oh
We
shit, the
keep
Flyers fucked up. Look at Morgan Frost.
Tippett,
Look at Tippett.
Barabee, Paling. Should we
Yes,
continue? This
that's
is
what I
why,
mean.
for all that talk about players hit their prime at 21, it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You are looking at the 1% of the league and going, Connor McDavid is amazing at 21. So should our star. Majority of players never do that. Even Nathan McKinnon did not become what he became at 24 years old. He's in his best hockey now. What is he, like 28?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't mean he's going to become Nathan McKinnon. He's actually kind of like a McKinnon light, at least in attitude. If he had McKinnon's size, he would
In terms
bull
of the
rush.
speed and off the rush, like that,
Right.
like the offensive
He,
games are similar. Yeah.
but the aggression, that alone, look, Nathan McKinnon's a freak of nature. He's arguably the best player in the league. We're not putting
But
Konechny
even
there.
with, hey man, like you bring up McKinnon, like that's a perfect, let me bring his stats up here. Like that's a perfect way to make my point because like the first time McKinnon hits over 90 points is his fifth season in the league. Like look at McKinnon. So 2013-14, he has 63 points. 2014-15, he has 38 points. 2015-16, 52 points. 2016-17, 53 points. 2017-18, 97 points, and then finally breaks out. So it just shows, right? Like if the Avalanche look at his first 4 seasons in the league and they're like, oh well, this guy's not going to be what we thought. We drafted him first overall. Did they give up on him? No, they let him continue to develop, and he
And
turns out to be one of the best players of this generation.
right,
So
a franchise caliber player, potentially
exactly.
generational by the time he's done. And it's like, you know, again, you don't quit on these guys just because you get frustrated. Like you can say whatever you want to yourselves. That's not how development works. And look, we got frustrated with Frost, and look it doesn't mean he's going to be the best player in the
Yeah,
league,
like I said,
but
I'll eat shit on that.
yeah,
Like
can he be a 70-point player playing in a second line role? I mean, that's
definitely possible. With
that he
being
for a
on a
late
fifth,
first round pick, that's a
yeah,
phenomenal value. Same with TK.
being on pace for 50 points too right now, where he was scratched for like probably almost 10 or more games this season and wasn't getting prime minutes too. Like I think it's definitely doable for Frost.
Yeah. Um,
Um
yeah, go ahead. I think you wanted to comment on something.
yeah, so last week we brought up just like potential cap relief that the Flyers might have and other teams that might have as well for the World Junior Championship sexual assault. So it was brought up that the Flyers actually have received relief for that recently. So this was on the weekend. So as per Cap Friendly, this is all courtesy of them. They do a really amazing job with just all the cap stuff. So go check that website out, anything cap related. But yeah, the Flyers have 70 or 7.92 million of deadline cap space per Cap Friendly. And the breakdown in terms of the relief they get for Hart here is the Flyers accumulate $2,445,427 of Hart's cap hit. His cap hit in total is 3.9 million. So they're going to get a 1.533 million of cap savings with Carter Hart and the situation. So obviously nothing crazy, but could be something to use for the Flyers at the trade deadline, just in terms of maybe weaponizing their cap space, maybe
Yeah.
taking some money back from teams that might want to get rid of stuff and maybe accumulating extra draft picks. We've already seen Briere do that in the offseason with the Provorov trade. So I think he's open to doing it if the asset is right. So we'll
Yeah.
see kind of how they use that space at the deadline. But
Yeah. So we did want to talk about Coots. I don't think we have too much to say about it. My whole thing is just I'm not worried about Coots. You can jump all over it and freak out, but again, think about how people freaked out about Farabee. Think about
mm,
Giroux and his hip injury and how everybody thought he was done, and then he came back and put up 100 points the following year. Like, I would not freak out about Couturier. Let him work through it, and even give some grace to Cam Atkinson, which he's got 1 year left on his contract. He's obviously in his mid 30s. He's been up and down. He also missed an entire season. Like that stuff definitely matters. So I would just give him some grace. Let Tortorella push him. He'll work through it. And, he got another assist last night. He's starting to get back into it. He's starting to get angry. He's starting to get fiery. You want your players to be that way. And Coots is at his best when he is fiery. So, my whole thing is I'm just not concerned about Coots. What are your thoughts?
yeah, I'm not too concerned. I mean, he's on a 52-point pace for the season. That's really not bad after not playing hockey for 2 straight years and 2 back injuries. And I think a lot of it for him too, and he'll probably even tell you this in interviews that I've seen, it looks to be the case that I think for him, like the defensive stuff's all there, but his offensive timing, and even he said it recently too, like sometimes it just feels a little bit off. And he's mentioned that. I think that'll take time to get back into it, right? And just to get those instincts honed and kind of back where they were prior to the injury because simply he hasn't played hockey in a long time. Prior to this season. But yeah, like 33 points so far for him in 50 games, 11 goals, 22 assists. I believe there's 28 games remaining. So I'd imagine he's going to get somewhere close to 20 goals on the season. I don't know if he's going to absolutely hit that. He'd have to get 9 goals in the final 28 games here to get to 20. So it's definitely doable. Like it's not insurmountable. But if he doesn't get it, I mean, also would be surprising. But I think he ends up somewhere close to 20. And if he does end up having a 20-goal season after 2 back surgeries, like, is there really any much more you can ask from the guy? Like, it's a really tough injury to come back from. And I think there's more than meets the eye to Couturier just in terms of his game, right? Like, everybody looks at offensive stuff, offensive numbers, but it's just so important defensively as well. And just in terms of Coots, like last game, he did get dropped off that first line. You saw Paling move up with Konecny and Tippett, and Coots kind of playing with Hathaway and Cates. So obviously Tortorella's noticing things. He's trying to kind of light a fire under his ass. You saw, right, the Seattle game where, Couturier has a giveaway that ends up becoming a goal against. He ends up getting the tip and goal that kind of puts them back in front, essentially. And his celebration's huge. And Tort said he kind of spoke to him before during the intermission, and like that's kind of essentially a big fuck you to Tort scoring that goal. And I thought it's really just funny the discourse that happens between Tortorella and Couturier. The fact that Tortorella calls him like an old crusty pro. Like, I don't think there's anything really to be worried about with Couturier. I think the coaching staff and him are on the same page. I think they kind of realize, and he probably realizes himself that he'd like to contribute a bit more offensively. But I think it's all just getting back into the groove of things for him, right? Like, and I think the offense will come once that happens. So I'm not too worried about Couturier. He's a veteran. And I wouldn't be surprised to once the playoffs come around, because at this point, I mean, I think it has to be an epic collapse for the Flyers to miss. Like, that's my opinion on it at this point.
Yeah.
But they're going to be right in the mix. And I think, Couturier is a veteran. So once they kind of get into that first round territory, I'm really interested to see how he plays after getting back to the playoffs. Because we've seen how he's performed over the years for the Flyers in the playoffs. And he's usually a point a game guy in the playoffs. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of if it ramps up for him in the postseason.
I will say I like the idea of Coots and Cates playing together. I still believe that it should be Coots, Cates, and Tippett as the top top 6 line. And then Frost
and Konecny together. I think they have some chemistry.
Frost, Konecny, and Farabee. I think they should keep. I think they should elevate Cates, play him with Coots. I think that would be a really difficult line to score against, and then it will just allow Tippett to do his thing. And then you put Atkinson with Paling and Forrester as the third line, and then fourth line with Lawton, Hathaway, and then either no forward there like they've been doing, or you bring in another forward, or it's Delorier or whatever. But I like that idea. I like the idea, at least when he was dropped, that he was playing with Cates. So we'll see. But I do think he will light a fire under Coots' ass. And I think it's going to be good. I'm not too worried about it. All right. Just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Again, follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Give us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. All that is incredibly helpful. Remember to hit the notification bell for notifications on when these episodes come out. Okay, let's talk a little bit about trade deadline talk. Again, Scott Lawton's name has been rolling around there. It's been coming up quite a bit. It's a tough situation with Lawton. One, he signed very reasonably. We know he would get a first-round pick. I mean, I was even listening to the SDPN podcast, the Steve Dangle podcast, and, they were asking, would you trade a first for Lawton? And they were all in agreement that they would. And again, not that their opinion is like, justifying awesome, the right. Yeah, but it does show what the thought is outside of it. I mean, he is that guy. A team would absolutely love to have him. He's a culture guy. He's a glue guy. He can put up points. He plays physical. He does it all. Now, do the Flyers want to necessarily get rid of him? I don't think so. Is it an option? Yes. Do I think that he's going to get traded in this trade deadline? No, I don't. Because I think when your team has played this well, yes, you can say, I'm going to move him and we can get a first-round pick, but Not all first round picks matter. The Flyers have two of them already. Um, and I just don't know if they're really looking to get rid of this type of guy. I do think the return is out there. Could it happen? Absolutely. I have a hard time believing it. I have a hard time believing that Scott Lawton is going to be leaving town in the midst of everything going well. I think if they were going to move him, they would have moved him last year, because the offers were there. They weren't competitive, and they still didn't do it. Now they're in a playoff position. Why would they move him now? Right
I
now,
think
they
they'd
have
want
all
him for
the
the playoffs. So
right. That's the thing, and even with the down year, first of all, there's still more to play here, and you see his game is elevating. He's just really important to the room. So, and that really matters. Like the chemistry in the room, all that really matters. I still believe his role can be replaced. I still think he's a replaceable guy. I don't see him as a Claude Giroux. He has to finish his career in Philly type of thing. I just, I look at it as GM. How do you say that to your team where he's obviously been here? He's one of the leaders of the locker room. They're in a playoff spot. They've been playing well all year, and then you get rid of one of the leaders of the locker room. It just doesn't show a lot of confidence in your team. So while I don't necessarily think it would be a bad idea to trade him, I don't know. I just have a hard time buying it. That they'll end up
yeah.
pulling the trigger.
I think moving him kind of sends a bit of a middle finger to the locker room in a sense. Like we're playing this well. You're almost trading our de facto captain away when we're
Well,
about to make a playoff run,
let me,
essentially.
let me ask you this. I'm sorry to cut you off. The only way I could see them getting away with it for the locker room is, let's say somebody offers us a first round pick and a good prospect.
Then you just have to do it, or else it's kind of negligence, right?
Then at least you can send that message to your locker room and be like, look, the
They
return,
overpaid.
they
Yeah,
overpaid for Lawton,
big
right?
time too. Not even
And
just an
and
overpay.
and we've made it public that we are rebuilding, right? But if you're just like, let's say somebody offers us a second round pick, I don't think it's happening.
No.
Even like a 32 pick, a 30 pick in the draft, it's not that tempting. I don't think it's that
Well, how
tempting that
many
it's
of
like
guys at 30, 32, statistically hit and become what Lawton
20,
even is, right?
20%,
Exactly. So is it worth it, right? To do
25,
is it worth it? I mean, I think he's definitely like there's being talks had about Lawton for sure because we wouldn't hear all this
because
noise,
teams are calling.
yeah, we wouldn't hear all
They
this
want
noise
him.
from a Friedman, from an Anthony DeMarco, from the fourth period, like from all these different sources, Darren Dreger, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I definitely think there's being talks had, but I think the Flyers are standing pat, like, hey, if we're gonna move him, it's got to be a first round pick and potentially even more. And I think
They could
they're
still
playing,
move him next year.
yeah, they're playing hardball in a sense that I totally agree with your sentiment, Reeve, that I think they're playing hardball. They're setting the price high in a hope that somebody really wants him. They're really going to
It'll
overpay.
be a bidding war.
And then we can justify it to the locker room and say, hey, like, you guys got to know that he's not worth this. And look what we got for him. Right.
Right.
So, then I think it can be justified. Personally, I don't see him being traded in season. I just don't see it with the way the team's playing.
Right.
And the fact that he means so much to the leadership group in terms of that and the culture aspects.
Because the
I
playoffs matter too.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be like I wouldn't be surprised if he gets. Okay, let's phrase it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Lawn is not a Philadelphia Flyer next season, but I think if he isn't, the trade will be an off-season move. So that's something you do in the off-season because it's easier for the locker room to kind of take that when they're not in the midst of a potential playoff run,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And again, I still think his value will be a first round pick in the offseason.
Yeah, because
I
let's say he has a great playoff run and great kind of stretch run here, which he's arguably potentially doing. I mean, since the break, he looks like the Scott Lawton of last season, right? He
right.
has a couple goals. He looks more like his old self, more being a positive factor on the ice. So maybe too, it's also like not to say it's a ploy to get him going, all this kind of stuff, but maybe the Flyers see, his dip and play a little bit, and the rumors come up. I think Charlie O'Connor mentioned on the PHLY podcast that Lawton hears the rumors, like he's aware and he's not happy about it. He doesn't want to leave. He wants to be a Flyer, so that's understandable. So it looks like this all is kind of lighting a fire under his ass, and he's playing way better as of late. So all in all, win-win situation, right? Like you're potentially even Lawton upping his value. If teams are scouting him right now and looking to trade for him, they're watching him play and they're saying, "Wow, this guy's looking pretty good." So
Yeah. And again, if they get an arm and a leg for him, I'll look at it, but okay, that was the right move. But if they
Yeah,
just get a late first round pick, I'm not going to be upset about it,
no,
but I
it's
will
still good
question it a
value.
little bit if we're in the playoffs because I'm going to be like, the playoffs still matter. It's not that the first round pick isn't valuable to us, but the playoffs still matter. It's still important for everybody to get that experience, for people to be in there. Having said that, and we've mentioned this before, there are other players that can take his role. Noah Cates can take his role. Paling can take his role. Maybe even already has to some degree. We have Elliot Denoyer, who's in the system building up, right? As far as the future goes, I see it, but I look at it and I go, is it the right move right now? I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see what
Tough
happens.
decision.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tough decision, and I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong one. But the return has to be something that the Flyers can walk away with, being like, yeah, we won this trade. It hurts in the short term, but it definitely wins us in the long term. And it has to be that type of trade. I don't see it as the Flyers just getting whatever they can get for him. Where Sean Walker, on the other hand, again, my whole thing is if Risto is moved, then you keep Walker. You don't move both. And I think you start because apparently there's no conversations with Walker about resigning, which tells me that they are, most likely going to move him because Risto's a lot harder to move. He's got term. He's slightly overpaid, right? He's not having as good of a season. So, but I do look at it as like the long term plan. It would be to move Risto. So if
Free
you
up
can
that
move,
cap space.
yeah, if you can move Risto and you get a good return for him, you have an opportunity to keep Walker.
I think
Having said that, that probably is not the most likely scenario. And I think if anybody's being moved off this team, it's going to be Sean Walker. I think that does make the most sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right, Yariv. I think with the Risto thing, the tough part might be like the salary retention because I don't think any
I don't think
team,
they want to retain.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
They've
right?
done
So like
enough of that.
I don't think any team's gonna want Risto potentially at 5.25 million right now with the length that's left. So that's what makes it harder to move. So
Well,
I think some
go ahead.
teams
Sorry.
they're thinking like, okay, hey, if you make him a 3 million point or $3.25 million guy, you eat 2 million bucks for whatever's remaining. I think 3 years left. Then maybe that becomes attractive for us. But then that ties up all retention spots for the Flyers because they're already retaining on Hayes quite an amount of money. And who knows if they want to, have all that dead space in the cap moving forward. So I think that's kind of where the limitations come in with Ristolainen. But I'll let you jump in here. You got something
So,
to
yeah,
add?
no, the only thing I wanted to say is if you're trading for Risto, you have to look at what the market is out there and the fact that the cap is going up. What is it going to cost the team to bring in a guy like Risto money wise in an age where the cap is going to go up and a free agency to
Yeah.
fight against? I don't know if he is that expensive. So, you look at what he is, the fact that he definitely has more offensive upside, the fact that teams still really like him, and you probably won't have to trade that much to get him because the Flyers recognize he's slightly overpaid, right? So you might be able to get away with a second for
Yeah,
Risto.
exactly.
And at that point, there are teams that do see a role for him in there. So I don't think it's out of the question. I think it's just a harder trade to make in season to your point.
With the money just to have it and make it all work,
Yes.
right? Like, so maybe like we're saying with Lawton, like maybe that ends up being something that's done in the offseason if the Flyers are exploring it. And who knows, right? Like this is a lot of times where the trades are kind of the groundwork for trades are laid, right? Before they happen in the offseason. Like teams have talks,
Right.
like, you know what, it's not gonna work now, but in 3 months when we kind of look at our cap and what we're gonna budget in, like maybe we can fit a Ristolainen in at this price once the cap goes up and we can calculate everything
Right.
appropriately. Like, so who knows what's going to happen? I just wanted to mention a couple things, like, in terms of Sean Walker. So this is a tweet from Anthony DeMarco. He's stating as the trade deadline draws closer, it's important to reiterate that Sean Walker is not a slam dunk to be moved by the Flyers. Philly will only move the right-handed defenseman if they're asked if a first-round pick or a package similar in value, a second-round pick, and a prospect is met. All things are on the table, especially with the recent injury to Ristolainen. Then he also stated that for Risto specifically, he heard the Leafs and Vancouver could be interested.
Yeah.
So who knows where it's going to go, but that completely makes sense to me. Like, especially with Ristolainen having some nagging injuries throughout the season, like why move Walker if you're not getting what you want
Because
back for
again,
him?
we're in a playoff
Because
spot.
yeah, they're in a playoff spot, and also he's been a really positive uh add to the team, like just in terms of like them winning games and being competitive. Like there's been a numerous amount of plays this season that he's made that have resulted in goals, them taking the lead, just crucial, critical plays in games. So the Flyers see that and they know, hey, if we subtract him, we're going to be worse.
Yes.
So they definitely see that, and they're saying, hey, like you're not going to lowball us on Walker. Like if you want him, this is what it's going to cost. And I think if they do end up trading him, they will get that, especially with the fact that the right hand D market's pretty slim. Like you have Tanev, and then once Tanev gets traded, like Walker's essentially your best option
Yep.
for a lot of teams out there. So it'll be interesting. One thing I wanted to ask Yariv, and we kind of talked about this. So we'll go both of us here. If two Flyers are to be moved here at the deadline, who do we think it'll be? Who do you think, Yariv, for your picks here?
I don't even know if I have two. I think it's going to be one player. So the only guys I can really think of are Lawton, Walker, Risto, and Stahl. Those are the only ones I think that. And this is kind of a weird one, but potentially Delorier.
Yeah, true.
He'd have
I
to agree
think
to it, but again, he's not being played as much anymore.
I think
Um,
he realizes the writing might be on the wall for
right.
him
That your
going
role is going to
forward.
be very
13th forward.
diminished.
Yeah.
Yes, as things go on.
Yeah, I think my picks will be Walker and Stahl. I think it just makes the most sense. Like I could definitely see Stahl getting moved, like just out of
I
courtesy to
think
him.
somebody would ask,
Yeah, for sure. He a good depth defenseman. He'll be a 7 for a lot of teams. And then Walker,
or potentially
uh,
even a six,
yeah, and I think Walker,
depending
I
on
mean,
injuries.
it makes sense to move him, obviously, like especially if um contract negotiations haven't been sought or haven't been talked about. And on the various insider podcasts, like like Jaron Dreger's podcast, Elliot Friedman's podcast, they've all stated, right? Like the Flyers have
He's the
not,
most likely to move.
yeah, the
Let's
Flyers have not engaged in any talks with his agent or anything like that. So, those guys would have heard that and they would have put that out there if they have. And the fact that they haven't kind of shows that there's a little bit of writing on the wall,
yeah,
but we'll see. Whereas like a guy like Konecny, right? Like Elliot Friedman put out that the Flyers are already in talks with his camp about an extension, and like
of
don't be
course.
surprised if they have an extension announced on July 1st, the first day they can sign him to one, right? So
Yeah,
I think yeah,
I think it's a great point.
you hear all these things, right, with these insiders. So we'll see what happens, but the deadline is going to be fascinating because the Flyers are in a weird spot essentially
They're
where
not going to be moving a bunch of guys. That I will
no,
not. I don't
I
see
agree.
happening. I think it'll
Yeah.
be one dude off the roster
I
personally.
think Sealer doesn't get moved at all. I
No,
think he gets
I
re-signed
think
at
he
this
gets a
point.
contract extension as well. I think the likelihood of you moving Sealer after everything he's done and become for this team, the return is just not going to be high enough and valuable enough to us as a organization. I can't see that. If somebody wants to give us like, honestly, I don't know why they would move him even for a second. To be honest with you, not that he's not worth the second. I mean, that's a phenomenal return for somebody like Nick Sealer, but at a certain point, you're kind of like, well, are we trying to win any playoff games or you know what I mean? He leads the league in block shots. Like why that's not happening by accident. Like the guy has been very good for us and this team is not ready to roll in a bunch of young defensemen
Well,
next year.
he's a
So,
playoff type player for sure. If you
yeah.
talk about epitome of like what are huge aspects of the playoffs that
There's a
could
reason
help a
those
team.
rumors died off about
Yeah.
Sealer.
Oh, of course, because I don't think they're shopping him, but like just his game,
Danny
like
even
his
said he hopes he could finish as a flyer.
yeah, his style of play, man. Like he blocks a ton of shots, really physical. Like what are two
Will
crucial
sign for cheap.
aspects to the playoffs? Blocking shots, being physical, right? So,
I don't
but
think
yeah,
he would require a bunch of money to
no, definitely
re-sign.
not.
So,
Maybe like a million, 1.7 million, like $1 million raise, maybe
yeah.
at the most, like
Yeah.
2 million, maybe.
That's I
That's
think he
max
makes
too.
Risto more expendable. He's the one who kind of makes Risto expendable in my opinion. Because of his play, because we can get
Yeah,
value out of Nick Sealer. And we don't have to go to the free agency market to find a guy that does what he does.
no, for
So
sure.
again, it would be another case where you have to overpay, and they would definitely consider a second round pick for him. They'd have to be crazy not to. but you have to think about what you're doing with the current core right now and how you cannot ignore them either. It's also not a great message to send to the players who are working their ass off, who believe in themselves, and you have to at least give them the opportunity to prove themselves in the playoffs. And taking away a bunch of key valuable players to them is not going to help them. And this, you know, or draft picks are a risk. They're not a
Yeah, for
guarantee of
sure.
anything.
And you have to think, right, for these young guys' development, like this stretch run right now, for some of the younger players on the team, like a Tippett, like a Frost, like guys of that ilk right now, even a Forster, so even a Brink if he ends up coming back up, in a Black Ace situation, like this is a crucial part of their development. The fact they can go into this stretch run, the Flyers are playing competitive games, chances are they're going to make the playoffs. Just for a young guy to play in the playoffs, play in that environment, kind of learn what it takes to win in the playoffs, huge. So if the Flyers can kind of get, beyond their track of like when they thought they were going to be competitive here, I think it's going to be a big benefit for them. And just before we move on to the next topic, one random thing I realized we didn't even mention when we went to our Konecny breakdown is the fact he got a Gordie Howe hat trick in 4 minutes
Oh
the other
yeah,
night. Just shows how much he's just doing everything for the Flyers. And we don't even mention the fact that this guy gets a 4 minute and 7 second Cordy out hat trick in the first period
yeah,
when they played what was it, Winnipeg? Yeah, just
yeah,
nuts. Just
yeah.
nuts, man.
Love TK. All right, let's get into our next topic. So, torch for the Jack Adams. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't think that there is a single coach in the league that qualifies more for that than him. I will not be surprised whatsoever if he wins the Jack Adams, especially if they make the playoffs. You look at the
Oh yeah.
turnaround of this organization. It's not just in the standings. It's how everybody treats us. It's how everybody looks at the Flyers. It's the attitude that's changed here. I don't think that there is anything more he could do to win a Jack Adams. I think this is his year. He should be the favorite for it. And I'll also add this, that I think that if Danny Briere plays this trade deadline correctly and the Flyers make the playoffs, he will also be a candidate for the Jim Gregory Award for GM of the year. And he also will be one of the top candidates. And I don't even know what the argument against it will be. If he is not included in it, I think that's crazy, especially what he'd had to go through, how he turned the complete attitude of this team around. And yes, you can give some of that to Keith Jones, but Danny Briere has done a very good job as general manager so far. He has a huge trade deadline ahead of him. Again, it depends how that goes. But turning a team from being the seventh worst, at least on record, and changing the attitude and how everybody views us and putting the Flyers in a solid trade position, not making any stupid decisions, dealing with the Gauthier issue, dealing with the Carter Hart issue, and still having depth, talent, and trending in the right direction with plenty of assets. I don't know. I think both of them absolutely deserve to be in the running for each one of these trophies. I think right now, Tortorella, in my opinion, is the favorite. I don't care if teams have a better record. They didn't turn their whole franchise around in a year. And I think that absolutely puts him as the most qualified, at least in Tortorella's favor, and GM wise for Briere, at least in the running. And I think both of them need to be considered.
Yeah, I think for Tortorella, the results speak for itself. Like you had a Flyers team that national media projected to be a bottom five team in the league, and they're comfortably third in the Metro Division, comfortably look like they're going to make a playoff spot here. And I don't think there's one prediction probably from national media this season that had the Flyers in a playoff spot. So the fact that they are likely going to make it here, I think that just makes them a shoe-in for the Jack Adams, right? Like you have a team that pretty much wasn't expected to be here, surpassing all expectations. And it's not even like they're beating up on bottom dwellers to do this. Like they're, have 10 wins against top 10 teams in the league this season so far. So they're doing it against even really good teams as well. And it doesn't look like there's really a signs of things stopping. So all that I think just points to Tortorella getting the award and just the fact that he's turned the culture around. Like look at
Right.
kind of where the Flyers culture was before him, and how they approached games and just how they, to be quite honest, under Alain Vigneault just looked unready to play hockey. Whereas under John Tortorella, it looks like they've kind of gotten that structure back in their game that they were so severely lacking defensively. You see how stingy of a defensive team they are this season, just in terms of shots allowed, how good they are in the PK, overall goals against per game. They're like in the top 10 in the league. So just all those factors, right, kind of point to why he should get this award. And another thing that I thought was really interesting to point out, Torch's theme of kind of getting hired and his team missing the playoffs the first year and then him making the playoffs the second year is continuing, right? Like he gets hired in Columbus, they miss the playoffs. His first full season there as the coach. Then the second season they make the playoffs. Same thing when he was Rangers head coach. The first full season he's there, they miss. Second season they make it. For the Flyers, right? They missed last year, but it looks like this season they're going to make it, right? So there's a constant theme here with Tortorella coach teams where he comes in, he kind of evaluates, kind of gets the guys out that he thinks, are negative in terms of the culture, obviously. And then that second season, those teams seem to make the playoffs and the trend's continuing. So I think it just kind of goes to show maybe we should have expected this. If you look at, prior track records of John Tortorella, we mentioned it in the summer, right? We thought it was an interesting thing to mention. So I kind of wanted to bring it back up here to show that that's on track to happen again. It's the second season for John Tortorella coach team making the playoffs. So I thought that was a really interesting trend. And just to harping on Briere, I think he'll definitely be in the running too, just with some of the moves that he made, because look at it, right? Like he trades a Kevin Hayes. He trades, well, not trades. Yeah, trades, but like retains a bunch of salary. He trades a Provorov, arguably two of the Flyers' best players from last season. That takes some balls to do that, right? To trade two guys that actively were good players for you in terms of production, move out from them and say, hey, no, we need to get younger. We need to change some things. And look how it's worked out and paid dividends for them. And then even just his ability the way he's handled the Cutter Gauthier situation as a rookie GM with all the PR surrounding that, the way he's handled the Carter Hart situation with all the PR surrounding that, like just kind of shows, right?
Yeah.
How effective he's been in his short tenure so far as GM. And I think that should really excite Flyers fans for the future with Briere.
Yeah. I expect both of them to be leading candidates this year. And if they're not, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not saying they have to win, but if they're not in that
They
conversation
should
at
be
the
in
end
the
of the year,
running on
yeah,
that.
that it would be absolutely ridiculous if they are not. There's a clear-cut difference in this organization since they took over. And I know, I mean, you can listen to the rest of the league talk about the Flyers. So we are the envy of the league right now. And most people might not really recognize that. But how many playoff teams are in a position to sell?
Not a lot.
When do you remember the Flyers being in that position?
Never.
That is monumental. And again, don't forget, we have Matvei Michkov coming, which we're going to talk about him in a second.
Breaking
Like,
news
oh,
here. It's not really Flyers related. I just thought it was interesting, but
okay.
Morgan Riley suspended 5 games for cross
Okay.
check to the head of Sens Ridley Grigg. That's not surprising, but
Yeah,
he
that's
got
what
him good. He got him
yeah.
pretty good with that.
I will say I don't think what Riley did was necessarily right, but I don't think he deserved a cross check to the head. You have to control yourself.
Yeah,
You ask him to drop the gloves.
but
You
hey,
push him
man,
against the boards. That's hit to
you
the head.
can't, buddy. You cannot.
I
What
think
Greg
five's a little high, but I get
Five's
it.
high, but what Greg did, he should have known what was coming. Like that's a
Well, the
growing
only
up
thing
at
is,
growing
oh,
up at
sorry.
all ages of hockey, like that like yeah,
Yeah,
don't take big slap shots coming in for empty nets, dude.
yeah.
Like that's an asshole thing to
It
do.
was
So
disrespectful. The only thing is Riley doesn't have a history. That's why I'm a little surprised that they gave him five. But I think it's one of those things, like you said, to the head. They want to eliminate that completely,
yeah, that's
and
why.
that's it's just an ugly situation. Good luck, Leafs. You're gonna need it, especially when you play us.
Yeah, there'll be no Riley for the game
Yeah,
coming up against the Leafs here. I guess just to mention too, I'll be in the press box for that one. So everyone follow along and we'll have some interview content and stuff
nice.
after the Leaf game. So that'll be Leaf Flyers game. So that'll be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, awesome. All right, let's get into our final topic. We're gonna skip the Phantoms updates. There's no real updates anyway, so they're just not in the playoff spot, and it's depressing. But I do want to talk about something I heard about Michkov, which is more just like an interesting story. So first, want to point out that Michkov has officially passed all predecessor players in points in their plus draft 1 year and the amount of games played. He is, again, I will repeat, on a generational pace. If you look at his projections, analytics, they all scream generational. They match with Gretzky, Lemieux, again,
Ovechkin,
Ovechkin,
Kucherov.
Kucherov. Like, we're talking about top 5 player in the league type of shit. Okay. So that's what he's doing. You know, we're dying for Nathan McKinnon. We're seeing signs of that in Michkov. That's something we should definitely be aware of. The thing that I heard, and I'm not going to say where I heard this, and it might not be true, but I do kind of trust my source with this. He's definitely very in the hockey community, and has always been in the hockey community for a very long time. So he knows people of people and stuff like that. That Michkov, and I don't think I said this to you, Vasili, off the show, but Michkov, apparently after he came to visit, all of the Flyers players have been texting him consistently to tell him to come over early.
Was this in the summer he came to visit, right?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
That people have his number on the Flyers and they are in contact with Michkov and they are telling him to get his ass
Like,
over
look how
here.
sick we are without you. Look how nasty it would be if you came to the team. That's exactly what these guys are
Yes.
saying to him, pretty
Now,
much.
now we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Nobody knows, but I'll say this. If you're communicating to this kid and saying that, you have the fact that the leadership team has not eliminated that thought process. I'm not saying he's coming over next year, but all these things lead me to believe that he is not finishing that 3 year deal in Russia.
Yeah.
He might not be coming next year. Again,
Maybe the year after.
you look at somebody like Cam Atkinson who's got 1 year left on his deal, maybe plays out the rest of his deal. You have a spot open. You will theoretically have a spot open, especially if there's more changes on the team by then. I just wouldn't be surprised if he comes over earlier. And you can see Tortorella is watching him. He's bringing him up in press conference. He's giving him nicknames. This organization is in this kid's ear constantly, as they should be, because he's a generational level player. And once he gets here, it's going to be bedlam for Michkov. And we will be the talk of the league. And people will probably see outside of this team what we've been talking about and why this guy should have been in the Connor Bedard talk rather than being talked about being a headache and dropping to seventh, and how the idea of him
Oh,
being the
wow.
seventh pick in the draft is a joke. And we got lucky as all hell. And
Worked out
again,
perfectly
I
for the Flyers.
could be wrong, but all indications point that that is the case. But I just thought it was a really interesting piece of information that
Yeah.
it's the same person who told me the other rumor that I mentioned to you, which I'm not going to say on camera, which does have to do with the Flyers, but is not relevant to anyone here, and I don't really want to talk about it on here. And it's not important either. I promise you guys, it's not important, and it does not matter. But it's aligned with that too. So I do kind of think that it's kind of valid, and that players on this team do have his number and are reaching out to him and trying to get him over here early. And I just thought
That's
that was
really
a
interesting.
yeah, I just thought that was a cool piece of rumor. Again, might not be true. It's a rumor, but
Yeah, no, it's a rumor, but like, I just think with Michkov and that whole situation in general, obviously the relationship is fractured with Ska. We saw what was happening. He's getting benched, scratched. Roman Rottenberg just did not want to play him. I'm not 100% sure, but like, think about it. If you're a Michkov in that situation, he's probably thinking to himself, do I even have a guaranteed spot on Ska next season after that I went through with them?
I
So
mean, what more
I,
does he need to do?
yeah, but obviously something, because they don't start him this season with the team. They loan him out to Sochi. So I think Michkov even knows himself, like his spot on that Ska team is still not cemented, obviously, or else they would have not loaned him out this season. So I think that probably frustrates him, because he's like, look how well I'm playing. I'm essentially a point a game guy, aside from the games that you played me 2 minutes in.
Yeah,
Um,
he's
so he's that,
90 point per game pace
yeah,
for Sochi.
that's what I mean.
Point nine.
He's probably very frustrated with Ska. So I think, who knows what that relationship is like. And I think that frustration maybe be a root cause of him,
I
coming
I
over
also
earlier
think
than expected. It might not be next year, but maybe let's say he makes the ska team next season, plays a full season with ska, and it's just like I can't with this team, like the way they're utilizing me, even after I made the team, like they're not just, I should be using a superstar type role because that's the type of player that he is, and they're just not giving him that usage. Maybe that sparks him to not show up for that
I think
third
he
year and
wants
they
to
buy
come
him out.
over. I'll be honest with you. Even without that, I think he already wants to come over. I
Yeah, you
think
could tell he's excited to be a Flyer.
I
Like, think
think
about everything they
I
told
think
us at the
he
draft, right?
I think he believes and knows that he is on the Connor Bedard conversation. And the
Yeah.
fact that everybody's talking about Bedard and Fantilli and
He
Carlson,
wants to show everybody up, essentially. Chip
yeah,
on the shoulder type stuff.
highly
But
competitive athlete. Why would you want anything but to play on the number one stage when you're a potential generational player? You guys think he doesn't know he's outpacing all these other superstars in the league? You don't think he goes, I belong there with the best players in the world? Like, and that he's willing to be, somewhat patient, but he's going to want to go. He's going to want to go. And I think there will be talks to try to get him out early. And I think they're already happening now. But they're no way a guarantee, so they don't say anything to us.
yeah,
But
of
I think they're
course.
working on that and trying to work on a deal to get him out
It'll be
here.
interesting. I think a key thing might be development camp is held what, a couple weeks after the draft usually.
Yeah.
If he goes to that,
Oh, I like
that's
that.
something to really
Oh,
keep
that
an
would be
eye on.
awesome.
So, I
That's such a
mean,
good point.
we'll keep an eye out, right? If he makes his
You're
development
right.
camp, I would say that's a pretty good sign that maybe he might be coming over.
That
And we're gonna be at the draft again, most likely this season. So we'll try to follow up, right? And ask those questions. Hey, like development camp's coming. This new prospect you drafted, is he gonna be there? What about Matvei Michkov? You kind of slip it in there and we'll see what they
yeah,
say to us. But
yeah. Well, we'll
some random thing I just thought off at the top of my head
I
there with
like
the
that.
dev camp,
No,
but
yeah, no, I like that point. Well, fingers crossed. All right, let's end it on that. We're in a little bit of a time crunch. Vasili, anything you want to leave our audience with?
No, just we're going to continue to have coverage. Obviously, the team going forward. Follow me on Twitter at Flyer It Up. Flyer It Up. I'll be in the press box for the matchup with the Leafs in Toronto on Thursday, so I'll try to give you and bring you guys all the best coverage possible of that game. And then there'll be a post game article after that, and even more articles coming as we go through the stretch of the season here. And we're also going to try, like, for big games down the stretch, maybe to do some post games. And
Yeah,
if the Flyers make the playoffs, we'll try to do
we'll
post
definitely
games
do. We'll do
after
those.
every game for
I think
sure.
that's a
So
must for
that's
us.
a must for us, definitely.
Yeah,
But we'll try to add some in throughout the stretch here too for big games if there's like big division rival games. And just everybody, we really appreciate the support. Like, we see our numbers continue to rise. And we love you guys all for that and supporting us. So we appreciate that.
yeah, and we're definitely going to have Steve back on. I have to reach out to him, but relatively soon. We want to, we want to do actual prospect updates, so we want to give it a little bit of time in between, let players develop when we bring them on, so we have something new to talk about. Again, thank you all so much for listening. You guys are amazing. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, follow us on Spotify, on iTunes, give us a rating there. All that is tremendously helpful. And again, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South, and also Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Thank you again. We love you guys. And remember, always stay